It is 6:30. We're going to call this regular meeting of the Chavano Park City Council to order. Lee Powers will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will lead us in the invocation. If you'd all please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious Heavenly Father, you are our great and good provider. As beneficiaries of your graciousness, we thank you. Father, today we are strained and tested. Across our land, conflict pits neighbors against neighbors as well as state agencies against federal authorities. The strain has separated family members, communities, and states. This is not your way. Father, as your people, we have been stretched to the limits of comfort. And but for our faith in you, we would lose hope for a better tomorrow. In you and through you, we find our strength. It is a strength not of earthly hands or earthly works. It is a strength that comes and carries your will to us. Please convict us with your message by and through the Spirit, and to only keep our eyes on your direction, and may we cast aside the distractions of those ruled by earthly reason. Father, this period has been an excellent lesson for our need to firmly affix our eyes and hope on you, for you are the one giving us hope in such times, returning joy after times of conflict, and delivering the daily bread only you can provide. With you, we find love for others, joy in living, peace that sheds alarm and doubt, and finally, patience to be steadfast in all circumstances. Father, it is only when we turn to you in our prayers that we endure, strengthen, and succeed in trying times. And in such times, as well as the better, may we be faithful to your call for preparation, comfort, and support. Finally, Father, we call on you to share with the many public servants here this day your patience, wisdom, and judgment on each of the items before us this evening, and may our thoughts and words and deeds be only those that you would have us to pursue. Please continue to protect, preserve, and prosper our community, state, and nation. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
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 Item number 3, citizens to be heard. There are no citizens to be heard, which brings us to council member comments. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The blessed moisture we've gotten recently is much appreciated, Lord. If you'd just let it come down in liquid form rather than solid. So I appreciate the vast numbers of people who are attending tonight in the crowd, and I wish you all to keep warm and safe over these bad weather days.
Thank you, Lee. Pete.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So each year brings its opportunities and challenges, and no doubt this year will bring challenges. But we are very, very fortunate in Chavano Park to have a wonderful city manager that will lead us through these challenges this year. And one of the things I think is very important is for that city manager to know that he's got council's support. And so I thought to myself, I said, how can we remind him every day of our undying support? So I said, well, every day he drinks coffee. So I got him a coffee mug so he can be reassured every day. But his coffee mug says, "I would fight a bear for you, friend." But it comes with conditions. It says, well, not a grizzly bear or a brown bear or a panda bear, but maybe one of those Care Bears. I'd fight one of those sons of bitches for you. So, Bill, just so you know, we've got your back. I wanted to give you this.
That's cute.
And you can have that. I got it.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you, Pete.
Conrad.
Good to see everyone. Hope everybody stayed warm and families are healthy and doing well.
Maggie.
Yes, I just feel so fortunate to live in Chavano Park once again, and all the fine people we have here that look after us and take care of us. I mean, if this is the worst winter we ever have to live through, we are indeed fortunate. we lost our power on my street, half of my block, and behind me, a few behind me lost power for about 8 hours, but it came back on 5 hours before they said it would. And then we lost it for about 30 minutes today. Now, that's not bad at all. So we thank you for everybody and God and everyone that helped us with this. And Chavano Park is just the best. Thank you.
Buddy?
Welcome, everybody. Just so everybody knows, Sonia Jimenez helped us with our Metropolitan grant with the Metropolitan Transportation. Her daughter passed away in December. I know we didn't meet, but she was 35 years old. She passed away with colon cancer. She's very young. Just a reminder out there, if you have kids or young ones, please go get checked.
Thank you, buddy. Just as a follow-on to what Maggie was saying, I went and talked to the linemen who were here on Saturday morning. It was very cold, and they were out there and taking care of us on, I guess, Sunday morning. And they were out there Sunday morning to put the lines back up. Yeah, it is important that if you've got lines that are by wires, please cooperate with them in helping to get those trees trimmed adequately. It is an inconvenience for our citizens and also for the line crews to have to come out in inclement weather. So let's all keep up the great work. Brings us to item number 5, presentation, recommendations, and announcements. The first item is a proclamation for Monarch Butterfly Month. For the last 11 years, Chavano Park has been declaring the month of January to be Monarch Butterfly Month. We are a monarch butterfly community, and the person who is so diligent in making sure that those orange and black monarch butterflies are recognized in our community is Curtis. Curtis, I'd like to present this proclamation to you today, if you don't mind.
That's nice.
Curtis, on behalf of the city of Chavano Park, I present this proclamation to you. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Now we got the lights. So here we go. It's not just about a proclamation, but it's about putting out seeds. We have given out thousands and thousands of packets of seeds across this whole area. It's almost like Curtis is a lot like Johnny Appleseed, except with no weed. I don't know if that's as good as Johnny Appleseed, but we commend you for your efforts in making sure that we get certified every year. Thank you very much, Curtis. And then item 5.2, proclamation, Bee City, USA. We have a number of citizens in our community that are very acclimated to bees. I'm very acclimated to bees. I like the fact that we have food crops, and I like the fact that they pollinate all of the flowers that I have at my house, and I appreciate them going to the water that I've put out for them, just as I know that so many other people in Chavano Park are the same way. Chavano Park, with this, will hopefully become recognized as a Bee City, USA community, and I commend Mary Young for working so diligently on this. Mary, keep up the great work. Thank you so very much for all your help in doing this. If we could all give a round of applause for Mary Young. Item number 6, consent agenda. All matters listed under this item are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired by any alderman on any item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately at the end of the regular agenda. Do I have a motion to accept and or approve items 6.1 through 6.8?
So moved.
We have a motion from Lee.
Second.
We have a second from Maggie. There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Item number 7, all matters listed under this item are considered routine by the City Council and will only be considered at the request of one or more aldermen. Coincident with each item, discussion will generally occur at the end of the regular agenda item. Does anybody want to pull any of items 7.1 through 7.6?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do.
Yes, Lee?
7.4 and 7.5, please.
7.4 and 7.5. Okay, and we will consider those at the end of the regular agenda. So, Chief and Johnny. Item number 8.1, discussion action accepting the fiscal year 2024-25 financial statement audit. Finance Director Brenda, would you come forward and introduce us to our auditors and say anything that you'd like to say before we receive the auditor's presentation?
Yes, of course. Thank you, Mayor. So good evening, Mayor and Council. ABIP Certified Public Accountants performed the audit fieldwork for the city's fiscal year 25 financial statements during the third week of November 2025, with 3 auditors led by Selena Jones, CPA, Senior Manager. This is their third year as the city's auditors under the current contract. So Ms. Jones is here this evening and will be presenting the audit report, highlighting a few items from the city's financial statements, and will respond to any questions council may have.
Hello, I'm Selena Jones with ABIP. Mike Del Toro is the partner on the audit, and he's not able to be here tonight, but he sends his regards. I have a brief presentation, a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, perfect. Yeah. They can see it on there. Perfect. I'm going to briefly talk about the annual financial report. This is a snapshot in time for fiscal year ended September 30th, 2025. Sorry. September 30th, 2025. So it's a snapshot as of that date, your fiscal year end. I'm going to go through it briefly, but as always, if you have any questions or if you want to spend any time going through anything in detail, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go through it pretty quickly. You have your annual financial report. It's pretty much standard as it has been every year. It contains information on your principal officers, your independent auditor's report, which is our deliverable that we issue our audit opinion. You have management's discussion and analysis. You have the government-wide as well as the fund financial statements. You have proprietary fund financial statements, which is your water fund, utility. And then there's notes to the financial statements that adds information, relevant information to those financial statements. There's some required supplementary information, and there's some other supplementary information that shows you some combining and comparative financial statements. The independent auditor's report, a couple of things to note that are really important. The audit standards that we follow are the generally accepted auditing standards, and the purpose of an independent audit is to obtain an opinion on whether the financial statements are presented in accordance with GAAP, and we determined that they are. We issued an unmodified report, which is the best opinion that we can give for an independent audit, and it means that there are no modifying statements to our opinion letter. The management's discussion and analysis, the words of management of the city. It has some financial highlights. It has some details on the government-wide as well as the fund-level financial statements. It gives you some financial analysis of the city as a whole and some information on your economic factors and budget. It's basically information that you're providing to readers of the financial statements. Financial highlights. For the government-wide financial statements, the assets of the city exceeded its liabilities, which is what we call the net position, by $20.7 million as of that date. $14.9 million of it was governmental activities, and $5.8 million of that net position is business-type activities, which is your water utility fund. Your net position increased, meaning your revenue exceeded your expenses at the government-wide level by $1.7 million over the prior year. $1.6 million of that was governmental, and $88,000 of that was business-type activities. On the fund financial statements, the governmental funds, the general funds fund balance at the end of the year was $3.1 million, which is an increase over prior year of $128,000. Unassigned fund balance was $3.1 million, and that's about 6 months of your operating reserve. So it's a good, healthy fund balance for your general fund. The combined fund balance, all the funds together, was $8.7 million, and there was a decrease in that It was $407,000 decrease, and that's because you have a capital outlay. So those funds went directly to the balance sheet rather than showing up in your income and expenses. So that's why you're showing that decrease in fund balance. The city's fund balance was 3.1 million of it was restricted, meaning those funds are restricted to be used for specific purpose by the entity that gave you the funds. And then there's 2.5 million that's committed by council. The proprietary fund, the water fund, that position increased by 88,000, meaning revenue exceeded expenses again, to 5.8 million. Your unrestricted net position in the utility proprietary fund was 2.2 million. We also calculated the working capital, which is your current assets less your current liabilities, and it was 2.1 million for utility operations, which was a slight decrease from prior year, but it's about, you have about 22 months of operating reserves in that fund. We also issued a letter on the conduct of the audit. It's just kind of basic information standard information that we give out. There was nothing new this year. It talks about accounting policies. There were some new accounting policies that were implemented. It talks about any management estimates. It talks about any difficulties in performing the audit. We did not have any difficulties. We never do. Brenda does a great job. We talked about management's representations, if we consulted any other independent accountants, things like that, and it was pretty much standard audit. And we also mentioned that you are in compliance with your Public Funds Investment Act. That's something else that we test. Again, I'm Selena Jones. Michael Del Toro is the partner, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or if there's any schedules in the financial statements that you want to specifically go over, or any disclosures, just let me know.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions, discussion? Brenda, just for clarification, the changes in fund balance are related to the road construction would be what I would anticipate.
The changes in fund balance for the capital projects, the street
Yes.
projects?
Yeah.
So that fund would have gone down because we were spending down and not having any additional debt issuances to replenish.
Okay,
And that should be itemized in the report.
yes. Okay,
Because that's a major fund, so we'll see those are listed individually.
okay. Bill, anything that you'd like to say before we,
Yeah, I think that we did increase the general fund balance unrestricted. What was that number, 150,000? What was it?
127,000.
127,000. So that was basically revenues over expenses that went into the general fund reserve. That doesn't count the streets or the water or any of the other crime control or anything like that.
okay. Anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to accept the City of Chavano Park's fiscal year 2025 audited financial statements and auditor's letter to management?
Motion to accept.
We have a motion from Conrad.
Second.
We have a second from Pete. There being no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you very much for being with us this evening. Item number 8.2, discussion action, consideration and approval of resolution R 2026-004, approving and authorizing the execution of a reimbursement agreement relating to the Chavano Park 1604 Public Improvement District and resolving other matters related thereto. Curtis.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. First of all, I just want to apologize for the technical difficulties we had tonight right before the meeting, but we're making it through it. I do have on my phone right here on the podium, Carolyn McDonald with Brian McDonald, the attorney firm for Bitterblue, as well as Chris Guevara with Norton Rose, our bond attorney. If you have any questions, I can relate to them, and we'll do the best we can. We're going a little analog here tonight. There's two agreements on the agenda tonight, and just before we dive into them, both of them were asking to be tabled. That was relayed to us late last week by Bitterblue, and the why behind that is because they are forming a new entity ownership group that's going to be owning all the development assets within the 1604 development, and they're still forming that entity, and these agreements, of course, reference that party that we're entering an agreement with, and so it was best to punt this another month and give that time for that ownership. So this will be in front of you in February City Council meeting, but I'll run through the basics here, and if you have any questions, of course, we have this month that we can get that to the attorneys and we can answer all your questions. So again, I thought I would, before I dive into the reimbursement agreement, what are some basics of this PID financing, just because we haven't had this on the agenda in a year. The city is the taxing authority. All the tax proceeds in Bear County are going to be deposited in city funds. There was some question of that at some point, I've heard before. The developer will submit certificates of payment. That's a word that basically an invoice to be reimbursed from the fund. And they will only be for documented construction costs of public infrastructure. So this is not for the building of the townhomes, which the private land that they will be selling. This is for the roads and everything else that I'll outline in the actual development agreement. And the city reimburses the developer only from two sources for those certificate of payments, those invoices they submit. It comes from either the annual PID assessment revenues, so you can think of the cash flow every year, the assessments are coming in from the properties, from the development, or a bond revenue, so a debt issuance, and the compensation to the developer would be all at once. A $6 million bond is called for in these documents to be issued. That was the cap, I believe, put in the PID agreement that we did a year ago. They would get all that money at once, and no other city funds can be used to reimburse the developer. No other taxpayers in the city are going to be reimbursing the developer for these developments. The PID reimbursement calls the city to form 3 new funds. I'll just run through these relatively quick, and then I tried to put a little flow chart to illustrate this, because even I was really confused when I first read all this. But our responsibility as a city, we form a PID pledge revenue fund, which assessment revenues securing the PID bonds are deposited. Each year, the Bear County tax assessor collects those proceeds from the property owners within there. We collect it into that fund. That's a pledge revenue fund. A PID project fund into which the bond proceeds are deposited. If the developer chooses to issue a bond, the bond proceeds from that would go into that bucket, that fund. And a PID reimbursement fund, which collects assessment levies if the developer elects not to pursue a bond issuance and instead wishes to move to a cash flow basis and get compensated via the annual levy assessments. So what attorneys have explained to us is that under this agreement, there is no requirement for the developer to issue a bond. And when we ask, there are many reasons why sometimes developers will choose not to issue a bond. Market conditions, the cost of issuance being all these other things. We're not anticipating from Bitterblue that they're not going to issue the bond, but that third fund is a backstop, in which case the project fund with the bond proceeds will not be going into it, but instead a cash flow. So every year the assessments of money come in, they submit their certificates of payment to that, and we pay them out. And we already have an existing PID fund, so we're actually going to have 4 PID funds. And again, I thought this was maybe a little helpful diagram to help me understand this. We have these 4 buckets, the revenues coming into them, and our existing fund is Bitterblue has put money into our existing fund we already have in our budget. And what goes out is PID expenses. So the cost for Norton Rose or the cost for the PID administrator, they get billed out of that. So that's already formed. These 3 new buckets are the 3 new that I just went over. The assessment revenues go into the PID revenue fund. They pay down the debt of the bond if the bond has been issued. The PID bond proceeds go into the PID project fund. They reimburse the developer of the PID construction costs if they've submitted the bond. And this, again, this third bucket, which I've used kind of a backstop, if there is no bond issuance, then the assessment revenues go into that, and it becomes a cash flow basis of accounting for the developer. And that is the basics of the reimbursement agreement, and the next agenda item is a development agreement, which might be of more interest in what, the actual, what they're going to construct there. So I'll end my presentation there, and again, I have the attorneys on my phone if you have a question for them.
I have a question, sir.
Lee? We're going to open both of these items up for discussion. As Curtis had suggested, that we will postpone consideration or voting on these until the February meeting, and so we will have open discussion on all of these items without having a motion to proceed.
Okay, but a question for clarification on one point.
No,
that we
you can
missed this
ask
time.
any questions that you
Okay.
want.
If the developer chooses not to issue a bond and goes that route, what effect, if any, does that have on the certainty, surety, and speed with which the money comes to us?
Well, regardless if the bond is issuance, the Bear County tax assessor is going to be collecting the annual assessments and depositing it in these city accounts that we're forming, which is divorced, of course, from the rest of the city funds and committed to this development. So from the city's perspective, there's no financial risk here if the developer chooses to not do a bond or not. It's simply a decision of the developer. Do they want their money all up front at once to be reimbursed? Or they would rather go not do the bond and debt issuance and just go every year for the next 20 years or whatever, I will be getting annual assessments coming in, and the city will be, when they submit their certificate deposits, will be issuing that out to the developer.
So I'm hearing from you that regardless of which way it goes with the developer, we get ours through the third party with certainty and regularity.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Lee, Buddy?
Yeah, Curtis, you said that they were forming a new entity. Will Bitter Blue still be the responsible party as the forefront of this project?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And responsible party is the Deep Pocket, or are we talking about the third-party entity is the Deep Pocket, and they're doing this for creditor protection purposes? Because that was a great question, Buddy, and I want to know, I want to know what the answer was that just came through, because I would anticipate that financial responsibility is going to fall to the entity that was created by Denton Communities and not on Denton Communities because they have an entity in front of them.
Yes. So Bitter Blue did this exact same thing for the billboards recently. They formed a new entity group. The land was given to that new entity group, and the city's contract with the Rogers Ranch has a assignment language in the contract for that procedure. And so it's all above board and planned. And these agreements also have assignment language put in them. But I believe by the time that it comes back to City Council in February, I think the plan is this new entity group will be a name and it'll be in the agreements. But it is within the Rogers family.
So just for further clarification, Chavano Unit 1819 is what we've been developing along 1604, and just as they've done Unit 17, Unit 16, 15, 14, they will separate each one of these developments in its own named entity to protect all the other interests associated with it. So what they're going to do is separate out of Unit 1819 another entity, and they're probably going to call it something like Chavano Crest PID, PID. And that'll be the named entity or something similar once they finalize it. That's what they told us they were going to do. And they're just working the paperwork to work through that. And then, as I understand it, what's planned to happen on the ground is that once the plats are all done, once the developments are all agreed upon, the reimbursement agreement is done, construction will start. And Bitter Blue will foot that bill internally themselves until it's complete. They'll get a price tag, and then they will come to the city and ask for us to issue the bond to cover that cost once it's a known cost. And then subsequent to that is all these tax reimbursements that'll come to the city, and then we'll then essentially use those to pay off the bond. So it's a pass-through. We are simply a pass-through.
Okay, Buddy?
That's it, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Okay, Curtis, why don't you go ahead and proceed to item 8.3, discussion, action, consideration, and approval of the resolution R 26005, approving and authorizing the execution of a development agreement relating to the Chavano Park 1604 Public Improvement District and resolving other matters related thereto.
Thank you again, Mayor. So this is the second agreement that, again, will be pushed to February for the actual vote on it. But this development agreement would be between the city of Chavano Park and this new entity that they're forming for the development. And just like Bill said, these agreements will be the kickoff, from my understanding, of the actual construction and then the bond issuance later in the year. Sorry you can't see this very well. This was the latest and greatest, most detailed actual, we're getting out of plats, we're getting out of concept plans and getting more into actual, where are the lot lines, where are the actual streets, where are the widths of the right-of-ways. And I thought that would be interesting to see. But when I was looking at this agreement, and I'm going to walk through real quick on these, of what were the benefits for the city you're getting in this agreement we're forming, and what are the benefits the developer is getting. So what the city's benefits in this agreement that we're getting, the developer is on paper and contract going to be responsible to build the public road, Pond Park, which again was a 60-foot right-of-way road, 40-foot road. It's going to have bike lanes and sidewalks. A hike and bike trail on the rear of the development to the municipal land recreation area, which is titled and will be given over to the city, and all the public utilities, water, wastewater, electric, you can think. The municipal land, the agreement also, as a benefit to the city, outlines the amenities in that municipal land, so essentially a park recreational area, will be maintained by property owners associations within the PID after the construction. So there's intent to have a homeowner association, commercial owner associations for the townhomes and the businesses in here. It ensures the public infrastructure is developed in accordance with the city's standards and inspections. Within the agreement, it's outlined the city has full control to do punch lists, walkthroughs on these constructions, make sure the roads are built to our standards, that we are satisfied with their construction of the public infrastructure. The developer provides performance and payment bonds, just like we're doing with our street contractors for the phases of our street projects, to ensure the authorized improvements are constructed as they're proposed in this agreement. And the developer provides a 2-year maintenance bond after construction of public facilities are complete, and the city has the final acceptance of those, just like we issue an acceptance letter to the street contractors that they finish the street. So we get to do our walkthroughs, and they have 2 years. They would have to correct any defects that arise and the asphalt concrete they lay down and so forth. And to me, in this agreement, those are all benefits to the city we're receiving. What are the benefits to the developer? And again, this was the way I was thinking. The developer, the primary ones, are gaining vested rights to develop the 22 acres within the approved PID concept plan. You can see language in there. If the city was to take an action that would basically make it impossible to build the land as it's been outlaid in the PID, that would be a violation of the development agreement. And it has some basic protections I would just call from undue, unreasonable city inspections and reviews. There's timelines that we have to return some city engineer reviews by them in like 30 days and whatnot. And I thought this is important to highlight that in the development agreement, in the event the developer fails to construct the public facilities and obtains city acceptance, and the city has authority to construct the public facilities itself using that PID funding. So if you were worried that this, it's a further backstop, if you're worried this thing would fall through, the city, under this agreement, could assume and construct from my understanding of it, could actually construct the road, construct the sidewalks, and the PID funding that would be funding for that would therefore, I'm assuming, go to the city then. I mean, so. But that is the basics of that. Again, that's how I was looking at this agreement. And I'll conclude my presentation there.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions, comments, or concerns? Okay, at this time, I'm going to entertain a motion to consolidate items 8.2 and 8.3, that we would, a motion to postpone consideration of resolutions R 2026-004 and resolution R 2026-005 until the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Lee.
Second.
We have a second from Conrad. Is there any further discussion? Oh, it's a motion to postpone consideration, which takes precedent. There's no further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Brings us to item number 8.4, presentation discussion 2025 annual crime report. Lee, just for clarification, you asked that item 7.4 be pulled. Are we going to discuss item 7.4 during the police chief's report?
We can do that, yes. That would
Okay,
certainly clean
so
things up.
that would not make it necessary for us to come back and
That's
to
correct.
discuss those later. So
Yes.
Chief, we're going to be discussing your report at the same time that, at the end of your presentation.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
All right, good evening, council. here tonight to present the 2025 crime and activity reports for the police department. Try to make this short, as I've been threatened by the finance director.
He left.
Okay, first shot here, you see our organizational flow chart. This has changed a little bit from last year due to our reorganization. We've added the patrol lieutenant spots. We currently went to shift rotations in January, a few weeks back, and we put them into 12-hour shifts as an incentive. We still maintain an overlap on our shift coverages from when they get off and come on duty. Total calls for service, excuse me, for 2025, total calls for service were just under 3,000. Total non-criminal calls, just over 2,700. And our criminal calls, we stayed at 226. Pretty even in average compared to the other years in the past. Those numbers are still considerably low. Excuse me, considerably low when you talk about Bear County or SAPD. Total non-criminal incidents, like I said, this is a graph over the past 5 years. With 2025, just under 2,800. 2024, 3, 2, and 1. A little bit steady increase on those non-criminal calls. These are generally calls that we don't have any control over, that are going to be similar to the chart we have here, where we look at accidents, major, minor, alarm calls, animal calls, wanted persons arrests were included this year onto this side, where in previous years they were on the criminal side. We're trying to clean up our flow charts a little bit. That's why you see the two pink areas marked under 2024, suicides and wanted person arrests. We moved those over to the non-criminal incidents. Overall, those numbers is about a 9.25% increase from last year to this.
What was the percent?
9.25 increase on non-criminal calls. These are criminal offenses, like we said. Over the years, they've kind of been steady. These numbers are all under 250. And for a town this size and with the activity that goes on, those are very good numbers still. And we'll talk about why that number has increased a little bit here as we go on through the report. Here are some numbers on our criminal offenses. Our TABC calls 5, assaults 5, or I'm sorry, TABC calls 6, assaults 5, burglary of buildings 1, burglary of habitations 0, vehicle burglaries 19. We'll show some comparisons here on that from last year that are in your notes as well. Officer-initiated activities, this is where we're going to see a lot of our increases. So the past year or so, we've gotten some new people on, and they've been some real go-getters. So you'll see in here that our wanted persons arrests have actually doubled from last year. Our DWI arrests remain about the same. I anticipate that number to go up considerably this year, as we already hit 6 for the month of January, and we're not even through the month yet. You'll see our narcotics violations, Class B and above, and Class C have jumped. They've almost tripled on Class Bs and quadrupled on Class Cs. Class C violations being possession of marijuana that we included into paraphernalia, since the state doesn't really prosecute possession of marijuana cases anymore. And then Class B and above is generally our harder narcotics, cocaine, methamphetamines, vape cartridges, some sorts of prescription pills as well. MIPs, alcohol went up, reckless driving stayed about the same. Same with unlawful possessions. You'll see our evading arrest charges cases went up a little bit. Some of our officer-initiated contacts, citizen policing, crime prevention, and business and house checks, they all went down a little bit. And then our biggest contributor to a lot of our officer-initiated arrests is our traffic contacts and traffic violations. You'll see in your pamphlets that traffic contacts have gone up by almost 2,000, whereas traffic violations have increased by almost 2,700. Those resulting numbers on narcotics violations, Class B and C, that's a 257% increase over last year, just in narcotic-related activity. 33.76% increase just in our traffic contacts. with a 44.23 increase in our traffic violations found as a matter of those contacts. This is our map that shows you where a lot of our major crimes, some of the main things that we look for, theft, and then we break that out into theft of motor vehicles, theft of mail, burglary of vehicles, burglary of buildings, burglary of habitation, and robberies. These are the ones that we want to keep as low as possible. And let me pull some numbers up here. So just in comparison, in your material that you have, thefts alone, we only went up 1 from 2024. Theft of motor vehicles, unauthorized use of motor vehicles, that remained about the same. Theft of mails decreased down to 1 from 4 in 2024. Or vehicle burglaries increased by 3, and as opposed to 2024. Or burglary of buildings went down by 4 as opposed to 2024. A lot of that involves, for say, Huntington with their increased security protocols for entry into the subdivision. Burglary of habitation is one of the biggest ones that we like to keep low, and that stays at 0 as it did in 2024. And then we had 1 robbery in 2024 and 1 robbery in 2025. That robbery in 2025 involved a delivery driver that was making a delivery, and a vehicle pulled up to try to burglarize the delivery vehicle. And when the driver came out, she confronted the suspects, and a fight incurred. Because that fight incurred, and there was a physical altercation involved, that increased the offense from a burglary or theft to a robbery. Some of our more notable accomplishments. Staff completed 2,280 TCOL approved training hours. I had 2 officers that completed their FBI Leadership Trilogy Awards. 2 officers became certified Part 107 drone pilots, in addition to A.C. Kelly, so that's 3. 3 officers graduated from the National Honor Guard Society, or Honor Guard Academy in November. We had 1 officer that was recognized by Mothers Against Drunk Drivers for their enforcement actions last year. 1 officer attained their TCOL firearms instructor certification. Our medication disposal program, which includes the DEA drug takebacks and the drop box here in the hallway, we collected 372 pounds of unwanted medications. Our Honor Guard participated in 9 events, totaling 145 combined hours of staff hours of training and attendance. We completed, like I mentioned before, our restructure program. And our average response times for last year were 3 minutes and 21 seconds. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Lee to, I'm going to open up the questioning with Lee before we go to everybody else, because you had questions concerning the report.
Thank you, Chief.
Lee?
It's a very good program, very good presentation, and I applaud the department for all it's accomplished, especially those last 3 slides. What is the growth or decline in status crimes in our city?
The growth or climb?
Growth or decline of status offenses.
So most of those offenses, we've stayed pretty much the same, equal. There's been a minor increase, and there can be a minor drop. It just depends on the year. But for the most part, everything's remained pretty close and comparable to the same.
Okay, then it's being handled. It's got
Yes.
a lid on. Okay, the other one was the burglary of vehicles. It's not like it's 2021 or 2022 when we had so many. I thought it was a 35 one of those years. It's not that bad, but it's still bad. For 3.3 square miles, that's a lot of burglary vehicles. What? Lost a filling? Can you attribute this number? I mean, we're an attractant out here. We're like a rose in a sewer as far as being a target for these things, but is there anything you can say is an attractant more than any other?
One of the biggest trends is vehicles are being left unlocked.
Okay.
And when they're being left unlocked, and you talk to these people about that, their argument is, well, I leave my vehicle unlocked because I'd rather them try to burglarize my vehicle than break my window or cause me damage to the vehicle. So the biggest thing is what they leave in their vehicles after the fact. People that leave firearms or computers or anything of value. A lot of these that you see up here on the board with the light blue dots, you'll see concentrations of areas, like you see down here at De Zavala and Lock Hill Selma. That concentration of numbers actually occurred during one crime spree, where residents of a facility had vehicles that were parked out in the parking lot and were all broken into. Each one's a separate report. Same within the residential districts. Generally, when we see vehicle burglaries in a residential district, we don't generally just see one. It happens on occasion, but there may be another one down the road. But they're generally, like I said, concentrated into a single event where they've came across multiple vehicles.
You're familiar with other cities and police departments putting together programs and signage about locking your car, something a constant, either a physical sign or something we publish in the Roadrunner.
Right.
Any of that ever been proposed?
Well, we've done articles in the Roadrunner talking about this very thing, locking your vehicles, not leaving valuables in your vehicles.
Any other items that you would say might work better or differently than what we've attempted so far? Because to my mind, it isn't working.
Well, I understand completely, and I feel the same way. We post it on social media every now and then as well, especially during the holiday seasons. We will share social media posts from other agencies that have put together a presentation, so to speak.
Okay.
But it's up to the individual homeowners to lock and secure those vehicles at night.
Did
Some
I
of them
miss it?
just feel so safe here
Yeah, well, I can
that-
understand that, but
that they
that's a
don't
false
think it's,
security.
it is, 100%. Like
Have
living
we
in
ever
a
put
gated
anything on the
community.
marquee? Has the marquee ever been used for this message? Lock it, don't lose it, something?
I don't know if it has or not.
Well, let's see if we
can't
can get
recall off the
something
top of my
moving
head.
on that.
Well, just a note, Lee, 63% of all the break-ins are on commercial properties.
Mhm.
They hear us differently than the 37% of the break-ins that are our residents. Those people are never reading a Roadrunner. You know, perhaps we need to figure out getting something to the businesses and saying, we would like for you to distribute this to all of your staff, because that's what's happening. You know, of course, other than Paisanos. Paisanos is two people got car break-ins because they left good stuff in the parking lot.
In plain
and
view.
somebody walked by and it was a crime of opportunity. But the other ones where they're in office business districts, those are the people that work there. They should know better and pay attention, just like all the people that were at the nursing home just down the road. Those people should know better than to do that. They just felt safe, and it's Chavano Park, and nothing's going to happen to me. But, you know, our citizens actually did a pretty good job.
I concur, Mr. Mayor, but it creates stats for the entire city.
I know,
And it
yeah,
creates
I
work
agree.
for the entire police department.
Yeah,
I'm looking for a minor miracle, something, come up with an idea, whether it's signage we could put on the speed limit signs, or something on the marquee out
Marquee.
there, something, because this is draining resources and manpower, in addition to being bad publicity for our community.
Okay, we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, sir.
okay. Anybody else have, Buddy?
Chief, can you touch base on the dramatic increase on the traffic contacts? Do you attribute that to the construction that was done on
No.
Northwest Military, or the increase in traffic flow that we've seen on the studies that have increased over the years?
I contribute that basically to the personnel that we have out there, going out and actually enforcing these traffic laws. You know, the construction areas and so forth, they've played a small part, but they haven't played a huge part. We're doing traffic stops out in De Zavala before we even lowered the speed limit and had the constructions in the area. It's the personnel that's out there actually doing the enforcement, pulling these people over for the traffic violations. We have some that you'd be very surprised at how fast they go down Northwest Military in the middle of the night. So the guys that are out there actually enforcing this stuff are the ones that are bringing in those numbers.
Well, but with such a dramatic increase in enforcement, yet it hasn't affected the response time at maintaining at 3 minutes and 21 seconds, as you said in your report. I mean, how does that work?
Well, we have multiple officers on duty. So if one is on a traffic stop that may turn into a offense or into an impound, then other officers take up the slack on calls. And they're stationed out throughout the city, so that they're not all grouped together on one side and have something happen up at Paisanos, or they're all up at Paisanos area, and I have something that happens on the far end over here, and have to make their way all the way around. So they stage themselves strategically in order to make better response times to different parts of the city.
So do you see, in looking for the future, are we going to need an increase in your police staff?
Sometime down the road, more than likely, absolutely.
Especially with new
We'd have to-
development?
We'd have to do a complete personnel study based on our call volumes and our stats, but down the road, it's eventually going to be needed.
Thank you.
Okay, Conrad?
How many patrol cars are out at any one point in time?
Anywhere from 2 to 4.
2 to 4 for 3.25 square miles. That sounds pretty good. But I just want to compliment you on everything you're doing and all your officers. Thank you so much. We all appreciate it. And
Thank you.
Always looking for a little better here and there. And
Thank you.
We appreciate that too. Thank you.
Okay. Pete?
Yeah, a comment and a question. So every time I see that 3 minutes and 21 seconds, that is awesome. I mean, what city can you live in where you get a response time like that? But the question I do have is, the Uvalde incident has been in the news, and I know we take a lot of steps to prepare for that. Can you just kind of go through that real briefly, the preparedness that we do have in order if an incident like that ever happened in our community?
So after Uvalde, the state mandated alert training, which is active law enforcement response training, to go to these calls and how to work together with outside agencies, formulate teams to go inside, take out the shooter. And so all officers before 2025, before the end of our cycle in 2025, which is in August, they completed 16 hours worth of alert training. We're mandated to continue that through every training cycle. And we are also equipped all the officers with AR rifles. There's ballistic shields in each car, and we have tactical first aid kits in each car. All officers go through tactical first aid training as well. We're fixing to host a alert first responder medical program in Blackman during spring break for all of our officers and some of our firefighters as well. So it's continuous ongoing training that we go through.
Okay. Maggie?
Well, I have noticed a great increase in the speeders since we finished Northwest Military, and I just get quite a chuckle that our police cars park in the middle in that turn lane, out in plain sight, and everybody just over.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're not hiding anywhere. They were there in plain sight. And every time when I come back and forth from my house or wherever, there's always somebody that's been stopped, and I've had a complaint from a person that got a ticket, and I said, well, where were you? Where were you going? And what was the officer doing? Well, the officer was parked in the middle. Well, what can I tell you about that? And I mean, they know it. I mean, sometimes when I take off down Northwest Military, I go, oh, I gotta remember, the little signage there that tells how fast you're going. It's great. So I really appreciate the officers who are there in plain sight, and it's not a big deal. So I appreciate it. It's the word will get out about Chavano Park. Let's not do bad things in Chavano Park. So thank you, and to your officers.
Thank you.
Anybody else before I get to go, Pete?
Maggie just reminded me of a comment. So this is another comment. One of the years ago, when I looked into the number of traffic tickets that were given, most of them, I remember it was like a 50-50 split where a lot of them were warnings. So they weren't actually tickets, but we would tell people, hey, you need to slow down. So is that still the case?
Yeah, it's majority warnings that are issued out versus citations. It's about probably not 50-50, a little bit more on the warning side, but yes, there are more warnings issued than citations.
Okay. Got a couple of things. Lee is exactly right about those commercial properties. And Chief, I don't know if, Lee knows more about law enforcement than the rest of us are ever going to collectively know. If the two of y'all could talk about that, Lee, that's where we're having this problem, and it's skewing our statistics. If you and the chief could talk about that, brainstorm a little bit, I would certainly feel better about that, because me saying something about it, I'm just talking. But when the two of you are there, it's a meeting of the minds, and we're all going to feel more comfortable with that.
10 right A and 10 right B.
Yeah. Second thing, traffic on Northwest Military. One of the things that we were doing in the budget process, we were talking about what's happening in Bear County, and we I think we all agreed that we want to have a more visible presence on De Zavala and Northwest Military because of what is happening in San Antonio at large. And I think that what we're hearing is that y'all heard the call that we extended to you, and you have responded diligently. And you think about the number of violations and the fact that half of these people, more than half of the interactions are going to be, you didn't get a ticket, is pretty amazing. But the number of contacts that you are making, the number of additional contacts that you're making, went up proportionately, and there was a proportionate increase in the narcotics violations. And what that means is there are a lot of people that drove through here in the past, and because we weren't focused on it the same way, and because Northwest Military was on construction, or they just didn't come through Chavano Park because 1604 was still available to them, and Chavano Park is now the easiest access points that they have. Y'all have done an excellent job in responsiveness, and this was just the low-hanging fruit that fell into your hands because y'all were being responsive. And I commend you for that, and I understand why the statistics got skewed. It wasn't that we all of a sudden had this influx of narcotics into the community. It was always in the San Antonio area. They just happened to make the mistake of driving through Chavano Park, and I commend you on that.
Thank you.
Certification planning. Where are you in your recertification of the Chiefs Award? Because we're also very proud of y'all's recognition, and we all look forward to hearing from you in the near future that says, yes, we have completed our materials and we're going to be recertified.
So we are actually finalizing our submission of our standards this week. Hopefully tomorrow. We have, I believe, 1 or 2 standards left is it. And we're just waiting on an outside party with Bear Metro to get us some data that we need for proofs submission on a certain standard. But their evaluators are due out February 11th, and they'll be here on site. Once we submit our standards online, everything's done electronically now through some software that we have, and they'll start their review, and then when they come out, they'll review some other things. They should be out here for a day, maybe a day and a half tops, and then we should be done with it for another 4 years.
Well, I commend you on that effort, and having those best practices. It's like learning how to write cursive when we were all in the 3rd grade. Practice makes perfect, and we commend you for practice making perfect in our community. That is very important to us. The Honor Guard. Buddy and Pete and I go to the road running games. I don't know how many of the other council members do, but when y'all are there and y'all are part of that Honor Guard, it is an honor to the entire community of Chavano Park to see you there. It just, as a kid, I can remember the palpitations of having something that I recognized, the chill that goes up your arms because it's something very special.
Well,
Thank y'all for being there and providing that. The efforts that y'all put forward and the efforts that a lot of other honor guards put forward, there is no comparison. Y'all
Thank
are
you.
absolutely wonderful. Response time of 3 minutes and 21 seconds, outstanding. I doubt that other communities can hold a candle to that. Just an anecdotal story. One of the knuckleheads at our congressman's office, he's an intern, he sees the button and he pushes it. and 2.5 minutes later, y'all are knocking on the door to get into the congressman's office because that is the panic button. Senator Cornyn's office, they're rioters in the street and in the building. They have pushed the panic button. They have called 911. San Antonio never responded. 2.5 minutes and never? 2.5 minutes. Wow, absolutely phenomenal. And then the final thing is what y'all are doing at Blattman. Y'all are doing an amazing job to be with those children and showing them what community policing is all about. And that's what we are in Chavano Park, is community policing. You build in them a sense of pride, and you instill in them a sense of security. Those are wonderful attributes to grow up with as a child. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any final thoughts before we let the chief go? And we will not be coming back to you on 7.4. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. Oh, by the way, Bill, let me turn it over to you real quickly. I apologize. Do you have anything that you'd like to add at this moment?
Well, that was a great report, and thanks for recognizing all the great things that the police department does. I just can't tell you how far we've advanced in the last few years in terms of the higher level skills, the preparation for training for those circumstances which you're not exposed to every day, but they're rehearsing it and they're training it, including an incident that might occur in Blattman. And I've said this before to some of you, sometimes we're on the road and we stop 6 vehicles. Sometimes 2 of those 6 will not have a valid driver's license or insurance. Sometimes we stop 10, and sometimes 4 of them don't have it. It's amazing. Actually, there'll be times when you stop 6 and everyone's got it, okay? But the amount of drivers out there that aren't properly licensed and insured and their registration is not, it's appalling, it's shocking. And those are the same folks that are speeding more than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. You would think that they would take it easy if they knew that they were in that situation. But by his traffic stops and his presence, they're becoming a very effective deterrent. Don't go to Chavano Park because they're going to stop you. And if you're not in compliance, you're going to be held accountable.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief. We appreciate the presentation. Item 8.5, discussion action, annual review of council appointment positions and contracts. Curtis?
Thank you again, Mayor. Annually, every year in January, on the City Council agenda is to review the many council-level appointments, positions, and contracts. Our standard practice is every 5 years we do a review, but then there's also contract deadlines and specific things of when we need to bring this back to council to review. So up here, it's in your packet as well, the master schedule that we use also to keep track of this. I included the out years, you can see, but for this year was scheduled, the auditors, because their 3-year base contract ends after this most recent audit, and then the city engineer, which is on our standard is 5-year. There's no contract deadline, but it's a standard 5-year. And of course, you can see next year, 2027, the judges and the prosecutors, because they're 2-year state law, building inspector, and so on and so forth. So city staff are recommending that we recompete the city financial auditor contract with an RFQ. And on the city engineer, we think it's important to remember that the city employees, this is the city engineer, which is a position in our code, but we actually employ 3 additional on-call engineering firms that we can compete different projects with for their engineering services. We also engage with 2 engineering firms for street inspection services and for water distribution system services. So recompeting the city engineer role, that job title, that city engineer role is not, we don't think it's required. And on any future city project, we can go with a different engineering firm anyways and compete it with their qualifications. We can't do a bid, but we can do their qualifications. So again, city staff recommend reconvening the city financial auditor, and the city engineer take no action. And I stop my presentation there.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to turn to Pete and entertain a motion. Yeah, no.
So I move that the city council direct staff to issue requests for qualifications and bid for city auditor services. And furthermore, that council defer all actions on the city engineer.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Pete, I'm going to let you explain that in more detail.
Okay, so I actually thought, that there's pros and cons to why you would bid something out. And so one of the things that I've noticed is that when you start looking at the city engineer that we currently have, that we've got a major project going on right now. And to go out for bids on that when you have a major project, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. So you would at least want to defer this for a year and relook at this next year when you do this. The other thing that I look at is when you actually put a bid for engineering services together, it takes a lot of time to go through that and to qualify them, to look, to go out for bids and to bring those bids back and evaluate those bids. And when you look at the things that we've got on our plate for this coming year, and you look at the focus, where we ought to be placing our focus, I don't think that's where we ought to be placing our focus. So I think we ought to, as the staff has recommended, I think this is something that we defer till next year to look at, whether we want to do that or not. But for now, I think we take the staff's recommendation and postpone this.
Okay. Also, I would note that we have a number of other engineers to layer in there that Bill has in his stable, and so we don't need to necessarily reinvent the wheel. We have 4 engineers right now that are available to provide recommendations and services, professional services. So we're now open for discussion. Buddy?
Yeah, Curtis, this past year, we sent out an RFQ for our law firms, and we have not yet to act on it. It's not part of this. Have we notified those law firms? As Pete said, it takes a lot of work, whether it be engineers or lawyers. When we set out an RFQ, have we notified them or let them know that we're tabling it for a year, or has the situation stabilized where we just need to pull that back? Or, where do we stand on that?
I'm going to ask Bill to answer that question, buddy, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'd be glad to. And as I recall, there was a subcommittee created that looked at this and helped us work through this. As part of that qualification, we received a number of qualifications from the proposals from the attorneys, and we did accept one of those attorneys as an on-call city attorney. So our primary city attorney was deferred. That decision, you're correct, remains with Denton Navarra, Bernard Zek. And then Sanchez and Wilson, we hired as an on-call attorney, and we've used them with some of the litigation. During one of the discussions last year, there was a discussion that we were going to defer decision on the city attorney and then kind of see how that goes. And that decision has been continued to defer. In fact, I've got it on the future agenda items as something that we could resurrect. I would recommend, if we want to just regroup with that subcommittee after this meeting and try to talk through where we are on this. We've gotten some really good service from Sanchez and Wilson and the attorney they've assigned to this. We've also been assigned a new attorney from Denton Navarra, who is a very, very experienced attorney, Dan Jones. He hasn't been here yet, but he is on not a daily basis, but several times a week we are engaging with him, and he's providing excellent counsel to us. And I'll be glad to talk offline, in committee, meet, and we can readdress that if we need to at any time.
No, my only concern was just to make sure we properly notify the people who do
Yes.
respond to the RFQs that we put out.
We did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. If there's no further discussion, we have a motion to, that City Council direct staff to issue a request for qualification and bids for the city auditor services, and further move that the City Council postpone issuing a request for qualifications and bids for city engineering services for 1 year. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Item number 8.6, discussion action, City of Chavano Park 70th in the United States 250th anniversary celebration. I put this on here when we were doing our budget last year. We actually didn't know how much money we had. And now we kind of know how much money we have, and this is our 250th anniversary. And for everybody that's on city council, there's not a one of us that's going to make the tricentennial. I remember what the bicentennial was like and how special it was to all of the younger people in the community and the pride that we had with that. And I'd like for us to consider as a council in February whether we would like to take some additional steps to make the quintibicentennial a special event in Chavano Park. Obviously, we're going to have 18 to 20,000 water balloons here, and we'll have water slides, and we'll have the best face painters in America, and we'll have the balloon characters, and we'll have a great little parade, and Mary will make, along with Ma Walton, her famous peach and cherry pies. By the way, they're about $10.98 at Walmart every week. So, we're going to have a great time. But I'd like for everybody to be thinking about that so we can come back together in February and say, this is what we're going to do, because we actually do have the resources to do something special. Now, a little something special that we will be doing here at City Hall during the next 6 months is recognizing the banner that Americans have been called to for the last 250 years. January 1, 1776, at the headquarters in Baltimore of our commander-in-chief, Cambridge, outside Boston, Cambridge, Massachusetts, our commander-in-chief, George Washington, had the first rendition of our flag, the flag that our soldiers rallied to. And it was the Grand Union flag, or the Great Union flag. And we have a rendition of it here.
Oh, my.
And the Grand Union flag will be flying over Chavano Park for all of the month of February. And in the Roadrunner in February, there's going to be a discussion that tells us a little bit about this. And then in each one of the subsequent articles, and thank you, gentlemen. In each one of the following articles in March and April and May and June, we will provide information on the additional flags. Just to let the cat out of the bag, in March we will be flying the Betsy Ross flag, the first flag officially approved by Congress, a flag that has a new constellation, the constellation of America. In April, we will be flying the Texas 28 flag. As Lee will tell us all, the states that come into the Union are all appear sequentially based upon when they are added to the flag and when they join the Union.
Except for the first 13.
Except for the first 13.
They're alphabetical.
And so the Texas 28 flag is the flag from 1849, when Texas joined the Union, and Texas became the 28th star. In May, we will fly the 48 star flag, and that is the flag that is recognized around the world. It is the flag that America fought under in World War I and World War II. Everyone in the world knew who we were because we defended mankind. In June, we will fly the 250th anniversary flag, which is the 50 stars along with a banner that says 250th. And then in July, we will again fly the Betsy Ross and the 250th anniversary flag. We will talk about that in the Roadrunner in each one of the following months. I hope that the children at Blackman can be as proud of our flags as I know everyone on council and all of our staff are. So please be thinking about what we should be doing that last Saturday in June, because time is going to get away from us pretty quickly, and we need to be making those final plans in February. City Manager Bill Hill has already arranged the best Aggie cooking in Texas to provide hamburgers and hot dogs for us, so that we know that that portion of it's already taken care of. And I know that Kristen has already got us those best face painters and other things available to us as well. We're going to have a great time here, and this is going to be something for our children to remember. God willing, and the creek don't rise, the parking lot, the environmentally friendly parking lot is going to be finished, and we're going to have places for people to actually park at City Hall this year. So, let's all keep our fingers crossed. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Well, I'm just looking forward to next
Hey,
year.
you got to use the mic.
Oh, thank you. I'm certainly looking forward to next year, or perhaps the year after that, when we have the 52-star flag, for Greenland and Saskatchewan.
I thought it was Alberta, but yeah. Okay, anybody else have any comments?
Well,
Okay,
I
Maggie?
do. I think it's just marvelous. I've been looking at some things that are happening this year as far as flags and emblems and things, and we have so many veterans in Chavano Park that I think that we need to do what we can to recognize them and involve them some way in all of our activities that we have.
I think that that's a marvelous idea, Maggie, and getting some type of fiesta medal for each one of them. Kristen has helped us in redesigning our 70th and 250th fiesta medal, and making sure that each one of them is individually recognized. And if they can be at City Hall, we would love to pin each and every one of them. It may take us a little bit more time to have our meetings than our traditional hour and a half, but by golly, they are certainly worthy of the recognition that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Anybody else? Okay, if not, brings us to item 8.7, and remember, after 8.7, we're not going to go to number 9 because we're going to go back to 7.5. 8.7, discussion action resolution R 2026-002, recording an update of the City of Chavano Park history and listing of key leaders. Bill.
Thanks, Mayor. Got here about 12 and a half years ago, and we had stacks and stacks of books and files. And with the help of the city secretaries that we've had, and I've had 3 outstanding ones, we've done a good job of saving a lot of those key documents, historical documents, and keeping them in safekeeping. But during that time period, we've looked at some of the history, and we've had time to look at it, and we're like, wow, the story of Chavano Park is really fascinating. And then, there was a point where I wonder if we can figure out who all the mayors were. And then, you look through all the resolutions and ordinances, and you can put that together. And then, well, what about the city clerks and the finance directors and the police chiefs and fire chiefs? So we started developing a list, and then every year we kind of fill it in. And we've got most of the key positions from the time that the city was incorporated in 1956 to present, and including a lot of the volunteer positions. And as we went through that, Zena Tetford and I discovered some binders that had the original ordinances that were passed in the 50s. And then as you go through other binders that had newsletters that had history in it, you got like, wow, this is really fascinating. And so over time, I put together a few pages of key events, and then I build on it every year. And then I've asked the police chief and the fire chief and the city secretary and the public works director to help augment that. And it's mostly the city secretaries in their records-keeping management role have contributed a lot of this. A lot of this came from newsletters, but every year I've started a habit of updating not an oral history, but a written history by year or month. And that has evolved to about 3 years ago where I thought, boy, it'd be a shame if something happened to the computers or I left and then nobody knew where this existed or something like that happened. So we introduced a resolution, and with that resolution is a listing of the key leader and the by position, by years, chronological, all the way through, and there's about 5 pages of that. And then in addition, we started out with about 12 pages of Shavuot Park history. We are now up to 27 pages of historical bullets. I think there were 10 bullets that we added in 2025. So essentially in December every year, while I've been here the last couple years, I will draft the outline of the major events. I'll send it to the staff. We'll get feedback on that, and then we'll add it. So I think I've got a slide here. And so it's hard for, the audience won't be able to see, but we'll look at our package, you can see this. On the left, I've got just 2 little excerpts there that shows that this year, for example, I added, because I found a document that had all 6 of the aldermen and the mayor, the original city council from 1957 in there. So Wallace Rogers was the mayor, Beano Meyer, Geo Cone, Chaz Boone, and Napier Rogers were all aldermen for the city council. But so that was just an interesting fact, not too important, but it's an interesting fact. Another one I added was, we had a change in municipal judge where Daryl Dolnig has taken over. So you can see that kind of shows you how we're doing it. Everything in the document on your website that is new is highlighted in blue. Everything that's old was existing last year, so you can glean through that very quickly and see that. On the history, for example, last year in 1956, I only had one brief statement that said, Shavuot Park incorporated into a general law city with a population of 167. Well, I've discovered the original incorporation documents from Bexar County where it was filed in Bexar County. So using those documents, I took an excerpt and I added the description about how Judge Anderson, who was the Bexar County judge, then he ratified the municipal election. And he's even got the number of votes there. So you can see that there were 93 total votes cast, 88 votes were in favor of incorporation, 4 votes cast against it, and 1 vote was undetermined. So there you go. But also in 2006, there was a highlight of where the first tax freeze was passed, and I think Shavuot Park was one of the first cities, certainly in Bexar County, if not in the state, that passed a tax freeze. And while it had an impact initially, it was very small. What you see now is a very large impact that the residents over 65 get to take advantage of no tax increases after they turn that magical number. So I recorded that. And then also something that we're dealing with this year, which is water resources and getting more water rights. In 2008, water rights were on the mind of the city and city council then, and there was a work group consisting of a number of members of the city council and water committee that looked to form a study on what to do about water. Should we drill more water? Should we purchase more water rights? Should we lease, et cetera? And I thought we would, and I'm not going to go through everything. All the new items in the history on those 27 pages throughout those 27 pages, and there's quite a few, are highlighted in blue. But anyway, the idea is to make sure that when you pass it by resolution, it goes in the city secretary's books, and it'll be permanently recorded as history forever.
Question, Bill, have we turned this over to bibliophiles so that it's in the Bexar County as well?
They may have a version. We would need it, for sure we would need to update it. That's a great point, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Lee?
Jude and Doris lived on Fawn. He was our judge out here for a very long time. What was his last name?
What was his name?
Well, it's Jude. He was Jude. His wife was Doris. They lived on Fawn. He was our judge, but when Lloyd Griggs was the chief police, he used to ride with me, and we held trial on the hood of the car. Good old days.
And those are the things that you are looking to put into bibliophile. Anybody else? Conrad?
Bill, I just want to thank you for putting this together. This is all extra work, and I for sure appreciate this. This is, well, wife's done some family search, and then there's some history that would need to be in quotes, but prior to Chavano, very interesting stuff. Just really appreciate it.
I might also notice that I was looking at contour lines for connecting the cliffside to the Salado Creek Trail, and I was looking at maps and topo maps, and I found a 1956 map. And I ordered it, and I had it framed for about $40. And it shows in 1946 only the eastern development of Northwest Military Highway. And of the streets, which are included Wagon Trail, Chavano, Saddle Tree, Windmill, Bent Oak, and Cliffside, there may have only been 30 houses that were built by 1956, and that map shows it. Moreover, there's two references to the word Chavano. One's at the old stage stop, which is by the railroad tracks, where now it's between here and Loch El Selma and I-10, and it's on that map. And there's a hilltop that's northeast of Chavano Park city limits about 2 miles, and it's labeled Chavano. I thought it was interesting.
Just one final thing. My lovely bride years ago put together a bunch of newspaper articles and other things that have the more checkered past of Chavano Park. We've done a really excellent job for the last 27 years, 28 years of not being in the Express News. When I leave as mayor, we will make sure that all of those things make it into bibliophile. I'm hoping that by then, everybody who might be embarrassed will have gone on to a greater reward, and so I will be in a position to release that information. Bill and I talked actually about that about 10 years ago, so we're just holding on to it until everybody has reached that right point. Okay, brings us, oh, Pete.
So Bill, as I started going through, I started it, but I didn't get all the way through it. And one of the things I realized is there's two reasons why you do this. One, it's interesting, right? It's interesting history. But the other part is really to understand future decisions are based on past decisions. And it's funny because a lot of the people that have a lot of history, like the mayor who's been here for 30-something years, over 30 years, really understands a lot of the history and understands how future decisions are impacted by that history. My question is, has there been thought to what platform this could potentially be put on to where it's very searchable? So if somebody needs to understand kind of the history and how it applies to a certain decision, has there been any thought about that?
Well, a little bit, but we could probably think about it deeper. I think you could easily put this on the webpage under community, under history, town history. And then, as the mayor said, Bear County's got a electronic library called Bibliotech, and we've got a Chavano Park page on that. It's got some history on it. Some of this exists, but not the most updated version. And you're right. If you look through what was the challenges and the things that were confronted in the 50s and 60s and 70s, there is a periodic resurfacing, and a lot of the challenges are the same. And so in some cases they made decisions. In some cases the decision was not to make a decision. And that's okay for them. And then, you know, times change, and a lot of this is coming back around. And there's nothing bad about it. It's just being informed as to why did we do that, or what were they thinking. And, you know, I don't have it all completely captured. Some of that's still in all the newsletters. We have almost every single newsletter from I forget when the first one, 1956, somewhere around there. all the way through today. We have that archived.
Okay, Johnny, come on down, 7.6. Is that right, Lee?
Yes, sir.
No, I'm sorry, 7.5, 7.5.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Good evening, Council, Mayor.
Yeah, Johnny, good to be with you. Lee, I'm going to ask that you ask a few questions.
Mr. Mayor, do we need
vote?
a vote on the last option? Motion to approve the resolution?
Oh, okay, okay. Very good, yes, thank you. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution R 26002 regarding an update of the City of Chavano Park key events and milestones and a listing of key leaders as known as of January 26, 2025? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion from Pete. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'm going to turn to Buddy, and I'm going to recognize Buddy. Buddy, do you want to second this motion?
Sure, we'll
Oh,
second it.
okay, Buddy's going to second it. Thank you for waking me up. I was just having so much fun talking about Chavano Park history. There being no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you very much, Buddy. Okay, 7.4, 7.5. Lee, I'll let you start out and lead us into it.
It's very simple question. I'm going over the page that was attributed to the water, and I noticed water loss in gallons for the month of December, 14%. Is that correct? 14% of the water we got out of the ground was lost rather than being utilized by consumers of the fire department?
Yes, sir, and we're working on that as we speak, trying to.
I'm looking back, fiscal year 10%. I get hung up on double digits. That's an alarm bell for me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any idea where it's going?
We've found some areas, just pinhole leaks, things like that we've already addressed.
Right.
Anytime that we do have leaks within our distribution system.
And keep on talking, Johnny. Bill's going to go get something and show us what
Okay.
is going on.
Well, as you and I discussed a very long time ago, and I think it was you that came up with it, the best way to get new water is to stop losing old water. You know, stop the loss. And that's almost as good as buying, but you don't have to
Yes, sir.
pay for it. So if you know where it's going, or think you know where it's going, I'd let, you know, the water committee, I'm sure is on top of this. I'll talk to Al about it later, but I was not aware we were in double digits as to loss. That's not sustainable, and I know you know it, and I'm sure you're working at it.
Yes, sir.
It's incumbent on you to come to us and tell us what you need to fix this.
Yes, sir, and we're working through it. Predominantly, we're working
my.
through it in-house, trying to come up with what we got. This is actually one of the points where we did make a repair in Chavano Estates. This is a copper pipe, typically new, is what we call in our industry new, and this is within the past 30 years that this was installed. Just this particular service line that I'm holding right here, if I'm correct, looking at it, is about 5 pinhole leaks within this small strand right here. And this was in a casing that was buried about 3 feet underground. And it just so happened to surface, and where it did surface, these leaks were actually on the west side, and it surfaced on the east side about 150 feet away. So water typically finds the path of least resistance. And us being on a rock formation that we are on, a lot of the times we don't see the leak because they don't surface. They find a fracture, and they work their way down to the earth.
And we have to pump it out of the aquifer, yes.
Yes, sir. So it's a double-edged sword when we're trying to find a leak. Yes, when they do surface, we come out, we make those repairs. But audio is, not audio, but listening to water lines will help us kind of put our thumb around it and be able to pinpoint exactly where it's at. And there is some technology out there that we can utilize with that, but it does cost money to use that service.
That's what I was thinking. With all the whiz-bang improvements we've made with looking underground with ground penetrating radar, NASA has satellites that can see bodies in the ground from space. And I'm sure all that's expensive. There's got to be something that's in our budget that we can do to save our budget for the water.
Yeah,
Yes,
Bill-
sir.
Bill, why don't you talk a little bit about what other communities have done, if you could, in buying equipment?
Yeah, there is, we know of Universal Cities bought some equipment. They can do this in-house. Some other cities have, like Johnny's probably already covered, and I missed part of that. They'll contract with the third party to come and then go through and try to identify these. And then, of course, then you have to repair each one of them that are identified.
Well, it's a balancing, and you're gonna have to, you and us up here and Johnny, so at some point comes a balance. It costs more to fix than what we're losing.
Yeah.
And there's a balance point in there, and I recognize that. And at 14% loss in 1 month, we gotta be getting close to that tipping point.
Well,
Well, this is a concern because, you know, when I first got here, it's maybe 6, and then it was 8,
Exactly.
and then it's 10, and now it's 12, and now it's 14. And it's not 14 every month, okay? So we need to take a look at that. And we need to isolate which pumps we're using and whether or not that changes. We haven't completed that study yet. I've asked Public Works to do that during the winter months, okay? But, you know, for just an example, when SAWS came to my personal house and they changed out my meter, and it went from an analog meter to a digital meter, I just happened to take a picture 2 days prior to my meter, and then, you know, I got informed about 3 weeks later that I had a leak, and then I ignored it because I thought it was my pool recharging. And then I kept getting these notices from SAWS, and anyway, make a long story short, I went out to my meter, and I saw that I had like water gushing from the meter connection where they reattached it to my water line. This wasn't like a pinhole leak. This was like water gushing from there. And it was all going down to the ground. There was no water that rose to the top. It didn't run down the street because it was right next to the street. It was impossible to see unless I just happened to see it. And so that was 35 gallons an hour.
Wow.
I could not see 35 gallons an hour in my meter, and it was in my box, but it was going directly down into the ground from my box. So that's the challenge we have. And you're talking $200,000, $250,000 to have someone come in and to test the system, and then you got to fix it afterwards. So your point about cost benefit analysis, that's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
And of course, one of the things is there are smaller communities like us who've actually gone and bought the $200,000 machine to do their own testing. Not suggesting that we buy a $200,000 machine, but hoping that we can find somebody that would co-op with us on buying a $200,000 machine.
That's be my third best.
Well, the city of San Antonio, Bill, what are they losing? Like 20, 40,000 acre feet? It was almost what they got out of Vista Verde. That's what they're reporting as what they are throwing away. And we talked about this when Bill and I went to the trustees for the San Antonio Water Board, and we objected to their rate study changes from 2 years ago and the steps that they were taking because they weren't fixing the problem. They were just pushing it down the road. You know, we're losing 14% of a relatively small number, and they're losing
Big percent of a bigger number.
15% of a bigger number, and they've been losing that 15%, and they know that they've been losing that percent for the last 10 years. Now, there are probably still places in San Antonio that you might actually find cypress pipes in San Antonio. There may still be some of those, because there were cypress pipes, we know, into the 80s and 90s. We have a much younger system. They weren't always put down the way that they should have been. If they had done the casing properly and put this stuff down, not on top of the hard rocks, we wouldn't have pipes like that. Johnny, would you bring that up here and kind of let us pass it from person to person? Because
Be careful with the edges, they are burned. So start from your left to your right, where your right hand's at.
Where the red circle is.
Oh, yeah.
So anything in red, so right here, there's one more or less, and then one here, obviously here, and then there's several here, and then another right in here.
And Mayor, my quick Google report shows a 2024 report says SAWS has lost 21 billion gallons a year.
How many?
21 billion
With a B.
with a B.
Geez.
That's a multiple. That's Texas Living Waters Project, that's the San Antonio Report, the San Antonio Express News, all reported at.
Wow.
There is a way ahead, Lee. Thank you for bringing that up. We've talked about it, but it's one of those things that as we do new road construction around the city,
Right.
we will get a different handle on this
Well, that's where the pipe is.
because that's where the pipe is.
Yeah, good man.
Pete?
So just as a reminder, 2 years ago, we didn't even have a complete map of our system. And, hats off to you that really, you and the Water Committee brought that forward, that we need to map out the system. And it's hard to start figuring out where you're losing water until you have a complete map of the system and are able then to mark that and make notes. So, thank you for bringing that up 2 years ago. So at least now we're stepping.
Well, and Johnny, you and Frank are to be commended for putting in shutoff valves across the entire city and actually finding those things because we had a lot of shutoff valves that we didn't know we had and a lot of shutoff valves that we needed that we didn't have. So thank you very much. Lee, do you have anything else?
No, sir, I've lit a fuse.
Anybody else? Okay, this brings us to item number 9. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion from Lee.
Second.
We have a second from Conrad. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. The motion carries.